So, hi Virag, welcome to the interview. And you have this sterling profile. Can you please introduce yourself and say something about you?
Sure, I appreciate you pronouncing my name well, so thank you for that.
I, I,
Yes,
I
it is
practiced.
in
I practiced it.
much more appreciation for that. So yes, my name is Virag Gulyas. I'm originally from Hungary. If you would want a one-line introduction, that would be the hardest thing for me because my profession has never been a linear one-line career path. I graduated as a classical ballet dancer and I went through 4 different career changes ever since. So right now, how I would define myself, I'm a common sense activist and a speaker. And in parallel, I am leading the Speakers Bureau for the Jewish National Fund, USA.
Thank you, thank you.
And that's all.
That's really appreciable. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview. So, let me begin by asking. My first question is that the thing is, recently there was this heinous terrorist attack on New Orleans. The thing, I read a lot of commentaries where people are saying that what happened in New Orleans and the various violent expressions of sympathies for Palestinians that has been unfolding since the October 7th are not disconnected. Those are not, the New Orleans is not an isolated incident. I mean, they are asserting that the Orleans was not an isolated incident. So can you please elaborate on it? What do they mean by it? I even watched one of your, I mean, I even saw one of your posts. You also agree, attested to that theory. So can you please elaborate on it?
Yes, I think we need to step away a little bit and see things from the macro level. And the moment you see an ISIS supporting flag at someone who is committing, and let's name it a terrorist attack, referring to New Orleans, the moment you see an ISIS flag, there is a link to the Palestinian situation and the whole Middle Eastern challenges right now because Hamas is a terrorist organization, is heavily linked to ISIS. So the two go hand in hand. And what the American youngsters especially forget is this, because they are missing the educational part. They see Palestinians as the poor, colored people who are the victims of the situation, as opposed to seeing the bigger picture, which means that they are led by a terrorist group, and that terrorist group is led by ideology. That ideology has one mission: to kill Jews and kill anyone who is not a Muslim. I don't actually know your background, what your religion is, but we are talking about extremism in, being a Muslim. So that is a problem. And that is not equating anyone with being Islamophobic. And I think this is where it went very wrongly when we started not naming things as they are, meaning New Orleans was a terrorist attack. The person executing it was a jihad ideology-led terrorist. And yes, we do have a problem with people who are attesting to an extremism in the Muslim faith, and that is not an Islamophobic statement. So I hope this answered your question.
Okay, okay. So that's a brilliant response actually. The thing is, since you brought this, topic of Islamophobia, the thing is, majority of Arab Muslim community in the Western Europe and North America do support. Have expressed their support for Palestinian cause. How do you denounce their claims without being labeled as an Islamophobe? Or this is the reality. You have to be brave enough to voice your opinion.
Look, there is a tendency to twist every word that we are using nowadays. This is why Zionism became the Nazism, and this is why whatever you say
That's
against
the most
certain.
ridiculous thing that I've ever heard.
Exactly. So it's like, we twisted out words, we twisted out nationalism, we twisted feminism, we twisted Zionism. And on the same merit, whenever you criticize certain elements in the Muslim faith, you become an Islamophobic. So that is just an easy way to close the argument without actual knowledge. The moment you label someone so heavily with currently disgusting labels, like being a Zionist is a curse word according to society today, And the moment someone labels you an Islamophobic or homophobic, the argument is closed because you have been labeled, you have been canceled. So this is the lazy society that we are living in. How to call out those people who are supporting Hamas and supporting the Palestinian people without being labeled as Islamophobic, that's not a me issue. That's an issue of the person who is labeling me. Because the moment they disagree with me, they're gonna label me. I can't do anything with that. What I can do is stay my ground and hold my ground and be very objective in what I'm saying, supported by facts and proper arguments. So, just going back and forth is never gonna achieve anything. If they wanna label me, they're gonna label me. Is it without merit? Yes, 99% of the time it's without merit. I give the 1% of my, human error that sometimes I make mistakes as well.
Okay, that's a good. Can you just give me a second?
Mhm.
Just some adjustment. Sorry about it. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So today, people in the West uh, have been afflicted by Bibi derangement syndrome. Okay, the thing is, whenever you voice your support for Israel, it is often equated with allegiance to Bibi Netanyahu. I mean, you can be a vociferous critic of Bibi Netanyahu and still be a passionate supporter of Israel. Those are two different things. How can you explain to people that these two are not intertwined?
How can you explain? I don't know. I feel like the whole society today is reduced to almost a kindergarten situation where we need to explain the common sense. It's like, how do you explain to a kid, that but you just asked me that Bibi Netanyahu is not a representation of all Jews and all Israel and everything. So whoever hates Bibi Netanyahu can simultaneously and in parallel still support Israel. They can criticize his policies and his politics and the way he leads. And in parallel and simultaneously, as I mentioned, you also are not calling for the eradication of Israel. So just recently, I posted a video in which I am roller skating, and the quote on it was a support towards the Jewish community. The hatred under that post coming from very, very young people, and I'm talking about high school students, saying Zionists have no safe place. Zionists don't belong here. So yes, we are actually on kindergarten level if a high school student is unable to distinguish between Jews and Israel per se and Bibi Netanyahu and everything they hear. And that in and of itself predestines us for a horrible future. It's not only against Bibi Netanyahu or something of Israel related, but me myself as a Hungarian, I'm often in the same situation.
Okay.
Certain people hate my government, Orban, Viktor, so badly that they can't even see my country factually and objectively because their hatred against my leadership is horrible. And hence they look at me as the Hungarian, as, oh, you are this and that. And this is just a false approach to life. So it's I think, as I mentioned previously, we got very lazy. We don't want to think. We don't want to be able to hold two parallel thoughts about the same situation. And criticism against Israel or Bibi Netanyahu can be valid. Nobody is questioning that ever. But the moment you are demonizing Israel, using double standard against Israel, or in every sentence you are literally delegitimizing Israel's existence, that is just wrong from all end, and that is not criticism. That goes beyond that. Then you want the eradication of Israel.
Okay, okay, okay. So since you said that you have received a lot of hatred for voicing your support for Israel, so despite all this hatred and vilification, how do you keep yourself motivated to continue your advocacy for Israel?
Hmm. That's a very strong question. And I often lament on that myself, especially after 10 years. Honestly, before October 7th, I was ready to kind of take a step back. I said, okay, I need to focus on me as Virag, my health, and my other aspects of my life. And then October 7th happened, and I just couldn't because I am, in a way, not from an ego perspective, but each one of us are responsible for our
Okay.
future.
Okay.
And the moment we go silent,
Mm.
that's not the way forward, because we can be silent and then everything just augments itself and everything just gets worse. So I can't stop, because I feel we are, especially our generation, is really responsible for a future where a Holocaust can never happen again, where I hope that we learned our lessons, And so I am doing my part, no matter how big or small that is in this niche. And this is why I cannot stop, because it is not only the future of the Jewish communities, but it's also the future of the non-Jewish communities.
Okay, that's a highly valid point, because if you look at history, anti-Semitism has always been a harbinger for an
Mhm.
imminent decay of any society.
Absolutely.
You look at Soviet Russia, you look at Nazi Germany. It all started with anti-Semitism, and finally, you know, ended in the destruction of that in the destruction of that respective societies.
Yes.
So if we don't, if people in the West don't rectify this anti-Semitic problem, do you think we will face do you think the Western countries will face the same fate as Nazi Germany and Soviet Union?
Hmm. I really hope not. I want to say that we have learned a lesson, but if you see certain tendencies in Western Europe and in the USA and Canada, then sometimes I'm not so positive. I don't know. And there is this anecdote within history that you need 2 generations to repeat the same mistake that they did before. And so that is why, in history, nothing is new under the sun. You see the same repetitions. There is, a war, and then there is a collapse of an ideology or an empire, and then the next one comes, and there is like a little bit of peaceful times. And so I really hope that we have learned the lessons, but seeing how many young people in Western Europe and in America are praising socialism and communism without ever experiencing that, or without even understanding the nuances of what that type of world entails for their life, it's definitely scary. So back to the previous question of why I'm still doing what I'm doing is because of that, because we need to educate the next generation so that they are not doing the mistake that their predecessors did.
Okay.
I want to be optimistic. So this is my answer to you.
You said being silent is being complicit. I don't know if you know if you know this, which is recently Erin Molan, the former Sky News host. She
Yeah.
said that I mean she said that she didn't lose her Sky News job because of her support for Israel, but some of the potential offers she lost some of the potential offers because of her stance towards Israel. So, and she also stated that her family members have been come under attack after expressing her support for Israel. So, how can you expect the people when they are facing some personal attacks, if when they are facing threats to their life, to break away with their silence?
Everyone has a choice. And yes, it is not easy. It is really hard. Oftentimes it is really hard. But for me, in and of itself, this fact that we get these death threats, that we get all this backlash and literal threats, as you mentioned, that in and of itself would show people where the moral right is in this equation. And this doesn't mean that I'm not supporting those Palestinian kids who need to grow up under the circumstances that they are growing up. I do feel awful for them. And my heart breaks each time I see them. They are going through their indoctrination by the leadership of Hamas. They go through horrible things. So their life, almost by the time of their birth, is decided as long as Palestinian people as a group are led by Hamas. So it's a hard choice, but we need to make that, such as during the Nazi times. Many people chose silence.
Yes, yes, yeah.
But those people who didn't, yes, they risked their lives, but they had society one step closer to peace. And I truly believe in that we all have our steps to take. And you need to choose your risks, how much you are willing to do. Not everybody needs to be a public advocate or a public voice, but everyone is able to go to their Jewish neighbors and say, I'm here for you. You are safe. I'm not hating on you. You can come over to me for a favor. And this is a small human gesture.
Okay, so you're saying you don't have to necessarily go, go to social media and voice your support, or give some press conference, anything like that. Just reaching out personally.
Just stay a decent human being, and that in and of itself, from the bottom to the up, is going to change something. Social media, I also don't think shows the reality of the world. There everyone is playing a sort of ego game, and people want to belong to the cool kids club, how I call it. So even if they don't agree with what they are saying, they say, because then they are part of the cool kids club. You know how it is in high school. So I feel the moment you turn off social media and you go on the streets, net the whole approach towards the situation is very different. I'm not saying that there are no issues, there are significant challenges, but the majority of the people are still decent human beings. But the bad voice, the negative voice, is sexy to sell on social media. So
Okay.
that's amplified there as opposed
Okay.
to, calm down.
Okay. So you are saying some of the loudest voices are in minority.
I do believe that. I
Oh,
really, truly believe that.
okay. Okay. Got it. So if you look at American foreign policy establishment, people in this American foreign policy circles have this tendency to tie every problem in the Middle East to Arab-Israeli conflict. I mean, they don't understand that there in those Arab region, you have the serious inter-Arab rivalry. They have a lot of other problems. They don't think about Palestine always. But why the Western leaders are failing to see that, and it's almost comical, as if Israel-Palestine conflict would be resolved. Suddenly, countries like Yemen or Iraq and Iran will become this flourishing, vibrant democracies.
Right.
So yeah.
I mean, it's again the lazy policy, and especially if you check, the larger population in America, when they look at the Middle East, most of them have never visited any country there. Number two, suddenly everyone is a geopolitical expert since October 7th, so that's another, warning sign here. And third, all they think is that, and all they know is that America gives money to Israel. And hence, Israel is the problem for whatever is happening in the Middle East, because they also hate the current America. They hate capitalism. They hate everything America stands for. And this goes back to the previous topic of how they think that socialism/communism would be a great alternative to America. And if you go to rallies that are anti-Israel, you talk to the people. Several times I had the experience that the guy said they are not there because they hate Jews per se. They hate Israel because it's a satellite state of America. So everything America stands for, Israel stands for. And so they link the two together. And this is why they burn American flags and Israeli flags just the same. So
Okay.
looking at the Middle East is a very simplified approach in a way, as I said, that everything is linked to Israel, but that in and of itself is
Okay.
anti-Semitism if you think about that.
Okay, okay. I mean, if you think about it, nobody in the Middle East wanted to host Yasser Arafat. It was USA which actually reinvigorated this Palestinian movement in the 1980s. I think it was Ronald Reagan, right?
Yes.
So people fail to see that US is also supporting Palestine.
Look, even more so, people fail to see how much money is going to the
Yeah,
Palestinian.
yeah.
It's incredible. If you would go to parallel on paper, the Palestinians, and I'm not saying it goes to the people, but it goes somewhere under
Okay.
Palestinian pretense, they got more money than Israel. They get
Okay.
money also from the European Union. Where
Okay.
does this money go? That should be everybody's big question, because, and I always give this example, I'm gonna make you the good guy here and I'm the bad guy. So you are Israel and you get $500,000, I get the same. and you decide to invest in the Iron Dome that protects your people, and me,
Mhm.
the silly one, decides to invest it in digging tunnels instead of protecting my own people, how is it your fault that I'm stupid?
Okay.
So Palestinian people, by the amount of money that they have received and still are receiving, they should be flourishing. But because
They,
their
they
life
thought
is
it was.
hijacked by Hamas, here
Yeah,
we are.
they expected Hamas to become, sorry, Gaza to become this Middle Eastern Singapore when Israel pulled up from
Absolutely.
Gaza, right? They could have turned it into a Singapore, but they all funneled those money to building tunnels. And people who visited Gaza are saying that some of the underground tunnels are more sophisticated than the New York subway,
Yes,
New
absolutely.
York subways.
And that is a true fact. And again, imagine how much money was invested to that. So for me, when an anti-Israel person is screaming and yelling at me, saying how you don't care about the Palestinians, do you know what my answer is? If you really care about the Palestinians, we should have the same enemy, and that is Hamas. You want better life for the Palestinians, fight Hamas. You are fighting the wrong
Yeah.
enemy simply because you are not thinking behind the.
Let me play the devil's advocate here. Some people, some pro-Palestinian people would claim that Hamas is just a symptom of Israeli action. How would you counter that?
Yes, that is something that I have actually talked a lot about with my Israeli counterparts, people who are in this respect smarter than me because they are Israeli, they have been in the IDF. That is a false approach again. They have voted themselves for Hamas. Israel really hope that the leadership that they are choosing is going to, bring some difference there. But at the end of the day, it was an election and Hamas won. So, and no Israeli force was forcing the Palestinians to vote for Hamas. It's their own choice, and we really need to stop babying the Palestinians in a way that they are always the victim. They are not responsible for anything, and it's not true. They are adult being as a society, and they are responsible also for their own lives. Meaning, if they keep on voting for Hamas or a terrorist leadership, I'm sorry, but you are getting what you have voted for, and that is a tragic notion.
Okay, but why the same Western leaders are able to make the distinction when it comes to Iran? They have this lens to differentiate between Iranian regime and Iranian people. Why that same lens is not used for Palestine?
That is an excellent question. I honestly don't know the answer, but I think this in and of itself shows the level of hatred against Jews and Israel. And again, it shows that whatever is being told against Israel is not a simple criticism. It goes way deeper. And that is an ideologically driven hatred. Because otherwise, it would be common sense just to apply what you suggested.
The thing is, a survey conducted in West Bank says that most of the people there support October 7th. So it says that you cannot really separate the Palestinian regime from Palestinians. So,
Yes, and that is against statistics. And yet, people here in the West don't want to hear that.
okay,
And
got it.
again, I'm never going to say that all Palestinians are Hamas supporter terrorists. But as you said, statistics are really inclined to the opposite of what I'm hoping.
It's okay. I mean, people did not think twice before bombing German cities, right? So it should happen. It's unfortunate, but it should happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Netanyahu, I mean, when Iran, launched a missile attack on Israel, Netanyahu gave a statement that he will pursue a policy that will change the balance of power in the Middle East. I thought he was hinting at a regime change in Iran, but it didn't. But the regime is still intact. It's still there. So, what was he trying to convey to people when he said that he is going to change the balance of power in the Middle East?
Well, what I can say is that I hope he is projecting the future. I can't really analyze on what he meant in terms of like his policy and his approach, but I do hope that the long-term goal is that. Why it didn't happen now during this attack, I hope they have a good reason. Yeah, I mean, Israel has a good reason why they didn't go further than what
Okay.
they did.
Got it. So, as a daughter and as a granddaughter of men who have lived through this oppressive communist regime of the 20th century. What would you like to say to the students protesting, students who are demanding for a socialist country? What would you like to say to them?
This question touches my heart, and like I'm almost tearing up because every time I think about how far I have come from what my grandparents had to endure during communism, and then I live here in America and hearing all this nonsense, whenever I have the chance to speak in front of them, eventually half of my hour with them is about communism and not the fight of anti-Semitism as a non-Jew, because I explained to them what communism meant for my grandparents and what they had to, go and endure day after day. And I think that personal experience shared to them sometimes can change something. Not all the time, but sometimes. But since October 7th, it got harder and harder. People are way more reluctant to hear anything that is not aligned with their beliefs, even if they are wrong. So just recently, I was thinking, and I had this conversation with a friend that I would give a book about a survivor who survived the Gulag and survived the Holocaust. And that should be a compulsory reading on every college campus. If after that you still say the same things that you are saying now, I think you are a lost cause. But I do think that those books and those memoirs and those autobiographies could change people because it would personalize them the experience that they might have read in a history book in a very dry format. This is also why when they invite a Holocaust survivor to speak face to face with people, it has way more of an effect than just, reading something in your history books. So my message would really be this, that unless you have experienced what communism can do to a society, do not envision something, a utopian view that you read in a book very nicely and carefully, defined what it could be. Because show me one country where communism has successfully got implemented.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. No. No country. Yeah. Not
No,
even. Not even a single country.
no.
Not even you could. I mean, I thought Venezuela would become a successful country, but it has failed.
Um,
Yeah, so not even you're right. So okay. So recently, the Natasha Hastroff,
yeah.
who's this advocate from Britain, who's a staunch supporter of Israel, spoke at a debate in Oxford Union regarding Israel. So she said that a lot of people declined to participate in the debate. Their reason was that if you are participating in a debate with people who want to kill you and who want to see Israel eliminated, that means you are dignifying their position.
Hmm.
So yeah, I understand, but where do you draw the line here? At the same time, you cannot simply remain silent, like you said, because otherwise these crazies will take over. And also, you cannot really, I mean, it's very difficult, for people who have faced oppression, who have lived through this oppressive regimes. It's very difficult for them to go there and engage with those kind of people. So how do you like look at this? Should we as people be willing to engage with those who are violently opposed to your position?
So I'm choosing my battles, and I think everyone should choose their battles, because the moment I go lower than a certain level in this argument, I'm no better than them. So the moment you go on a level of stupid, you become stupid. That's easy in plain language. So when I engage in a discussion that is literally filled with just hearsays, and I know that there is nothing else but hatred, there is no argument that I can change that view there. Why? Because I can change his emotions with my cognitive sentences, and you can't change hearts with brains. So you choose your battles. Whenever I engage in a conversation, within 2 seconds, I understand whether there is a way to communicate here and whether there is a chance, that we can learn from each other. And we don't need to agree on everything. But what I'm always trying to reach is the common point that our baseline is Hamas is a terrorist organization and Israel is here to stay. The moment we have this, we can build on that slowly but surely. And if within the 2 seconds I see that this is absolutely a lost cause because there is no one listening and no intention of listening, then I say, okay, let's say goodbye.
But you cannot allow that those crazies to dominate the discourse, right? You
Yes, that's true. But as we said and we established, and I still believe in that, they are a loud minority. They are just loud. Also in an argument, whenever you are with your spouse or your mother or stuff, the winner is not who screams the loudest. The winner is who has the moral stand and the truth. And it takes time, but eventually it's gonna surface. So why we now maybe open social media and we think that they are the winners, it is going to backfire. It's gonna take time. I don't know how long of a time, but even the Nazis couldn't stay in power. And they were loud.
okay, okay. So yeah, okay. So, as an Hungarian, I would like to ask you this. Viktor Orban has been a staunch supporter of Israel, and he has publicly expressed his, support for Netanyahu. After the ICC announced an arrest warrant for Netanyahu, he openly invited him to come to Hungary. So, but why he has not extended that same support to Ukraine? Because I look at it this way. I look at it. It's all a part of the same axis. It's all a part of the same axis. Ukraine and Israel are in a way waging the same battle. The enemies are a part of the same alliance. So why Viktor Orban is not as supportive to Ukraine as he is for Israel?
I think that is a manifold question, and I definitely disagree on the point that Israel and Ukraine are on the same merit in the war that they are fighting.
Okay.
Why Orban and the Hungarian government was not so openly supportive of the war with Ukraine. We have the refugees coming from Ukraine, and we are there for humanitarian help. What
Okay.
we clearly said from day one that it is not our war and we are not entering into war. Don't forget, we are a neighboring country. And the
Okay.
Ukrainian president has often blackmailed us that we should send our people to war. This is where Orban Viktor says no. Another thing that I think is not super in the knowledge, especially beyond Eastern Europe/Europe, is that the relationship between Hungary and Ukraine is not something that you remember as, wow, that's amazing. Just before the war broke out, Ukraine closed Hungarian schools. They
Mm.
definitely oppressed their Hungarian minority groups. And yet, and regardless of that, we are still there for the Ukrainian population and helping them the way we can. It is not our war. Number two, Russia, according to international law and the Russian leadership, is not a terrorist organization. You can have your opinion about Putin as much
Yeah,
as
yeah.
you want,
Yes.
but as per the law, they are not.
Yeah,
Hamas,
they are not terrorist. Yeah.
Hamas, on the other hand, is a designated terrorist cell, and hence Hungary needs to stand up against it because it's in our constitution and also according to the European Union's law, you need to stand against terrorism. So I think there are so many other layers to that, but these are just a couple of pinpointers maybe to better understand. But by no means I would compare the Ukrainian-Russian/Hamas-Israeli war, regardless of Russia's known affiliation with Iran and beyond. It is very, very different to my understanding and experience.
Okay. I'm an Indian citizen actually living in USA. India holds the same view.
Mm.
You just for a moment sounded like Indian foreign minister.
Okay.
He has the same view. It's not our war.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. So recently, President Jimmy Carter passed away, and the 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 eulogies that he's receiving, that the glowing appraisals that he's receiving now, that how he's this guy who brought peace to the Middle East, how he brought Israel and Egypt together, and etc., etc., etc. People fail to remember that he was the most anti-Israel president in US history. He tried everything in his capacity to weaken Israel. Some of the problems, I mean, he was chiefly responsible for the deposing of deposition of Shah in Iran and this and the takeover of Ayatollahs. But do we need to really, just because a person had passed away, do we really need to, whitewash his reputation?
Look, some years ago, a mentor told me that the strongest thing you can do as a person is to say when you don't know enough. And I will answer this now. I don't know enough about this. I'm not an American citizen. I do
Okay,
know on the surface what happened, but I will not give my point of view simply because, I acknowledge the fact that I don't know enough about this topic.
okay, okay.
But what I will link in here, though, is whitewashing. Just recently, Joe Biden gave the presidential award to George Soros. Talk about whitewashing. George Soros was part and helped the Nazis. And today he is getting a presidential award. So whitewashing seems to be a tendency.
Okay. I mean, you cannot do anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, after this October 7th attack, Hollywood has maintained an eerie silence because whenever anything happens in any part of the world to a supposedly minority people, they always, people from Hollywood always step up and assume this role of an unsolicited spokesperson of those supposedly suppressed people. You saw that with Boko Haram, you saw that with Me Too, during Me Too. But even some of the Jewish actors have not voiced their condemnation of Hamas. Do you think this is really healthy? Because Hollywood has some creative cultural influence over America. So, do you think it's time for them to, you know, come out of that ivory tower?
So Hollywood is bleeding from so many, holes and angles. Arts and Hollywood has always been left-leaning,
Hmm.
space and place.
Hmm.
So it's not a surprise to me that Jews from Hollywood would not acknowledge the level of challenge and they would not come out strongly. Number
Okay.
one, they are afraid for their own career. So, they have to make a choice and they made their choice. Only a
Okay.
few of them were okay to say, I'm okay to risk my own
Like Gal Gadot.
and my own career for the truth. And
Okay.
on the other hand, I don't even acknowledge Hollywood actors as someone whose voice would matter to me. But that's again me personally. I know pop culture doesn't work that way. I understand how much an influence they have, but I could never give anything to what a Hollywood actor has been saying.
Look at it. Schindler's List, that movie played a huge role in educating people about
Yeah.
Holocaust.
Yes.
So you really cannot discount the cultural power of Hollywood.
I hear you. I
Yeah.
definitely hear you.
Do you think in today's climate you can make a movie like Schindler's List,
I doubt. I really doubt. You just open,
portraying Jews as the victim? It won't
yeah,
sit well with their narrative, right?
yeah. Yeah, no, you make a good point. I was cultured differently, that's why like American, I can live in America and I speak the language and I assimilate to my biggest abilities or greatest abilities, but I will never understand the pop culture in a way they do,
Mm,
simply
okay.
because I didn't socialize in this. So I see the
Mm,
power of Hollywood, but they per se never have an effect on me. And I would also encourage them to be mindful enough to say what I just said for your previous question. I don't know enough. Hence, I am not saying enough. It would have been just fair and correct and the right thing to do is if you want to say something, say it's horrible what happened on October 7th. And in parallel, I'm also, sorry for the Palestinians who are suffering. At least,
why do they have to link that? Because do they say that? I mean, when they celebrate this World War II commemoration day, do they say that I'm sorry for the Germans also?
I hear you, but I think that would have been way more than just put out the melon pin and go completely against Israel. So while I don't agree with this, what I just suggested, but that is way better than not saying anything or going full blown against Israel, even though Israel had suffered October 7th. So, you know, at least be PC in that way that you mentioned both.
Okay, okay. So, in one of your recent interviews, you said that anti-Semitism is a scourge that can never be completely eliminated. Is it rooted in pragmatism, or you're just toning down the expectations to motivate people?
Hmm. I think it's both. There are very few features that people label me with, and that's being a pragmatic. I'm really like the dreamer. But on this one, we need to be honest and pragmatic. We are humans. We are predisposed to have stereotypes against other people who are different from us. The minimal difference can encourage the greatest stereotypes. And I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I still have stereotypes against people that and peoples and nations that I don't know or I'm not familiar with. That's nature. So for me, anti-Semitism, hence, is never something that we can just eradicate. Because as long as there are Orthodox Jews who dress in a very visible way, they're always going to be different than I am or you are. And hence, when you are a child, you will look at them like, oh, but we can tone it down in a way that, for example, what's happening in Eastern Europe, that you have a proper education about Holocaust. You have, for example, one of the policies is that if you say that the Holocaust never happened, then it's a felony, as opposed to in the United States, it's a freedom of speech under First Amendment. So I think you need to have checks and balances, such as you have against racism. Why is it that every other minority group has their protection, but somehow when it comes to Jews, oh, it's just business as usual that we can hurt them?
Because Jews are considered powerful
Yes.
people.
They are the right, powerful people, and none of them is actually true. If you see how many Holocaust survivors are living under poverty line, in and of itself, the statement that,
Should that even matter? What if they are powerful people? What's your problem with that? Should that even matter?
of course not. But then comes another human factor here, jealousy.
Okay.
Obviously, you are jealous. So, you know, stereotypes that I grew up on, one of them was that Jews only help Jews, and that, yeah, Jews are very powerful and you can't get into their circles. And if you're not okay with yourself, you can get triggered by this. But the moment I understood what a beautiful thing is that, what they are doing, that they are actually helping each other. I want to see a Hungarian group here in the diaspora who are not like, you know, fighting and competing with each other, but genuinely helping each other. I think we would be so much more successful than we are as Hungarians in the diaspora if we would follow the steps of the Jewish communities. So the
Okay.
stereotypes that you think are bad are actually something that we envy.
Okay. 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 So you, sir, you talked about this camaraderie among the Jewish people. So American Jews have traditionally been to- loyal to Democratic Party. So in the past year, Democratic Party has become something like a Labour Party in Britain under Jeremy Corbyn. Uh, I thought in this election, Jews will, sever their loyalty for the Democratic Party. But almost 70% of American Jews have voted for the Democratic Party. When I posed this question to uh, one of the Jewish person in America, I interviewed him recently. He said that Jews are not a monolith community. They have, they have their own interpretations of Judaism. There are several different interpretations of Judaism. The thing is, the enemies who want to destroy you do not make such distinctions. Then why are you? Why, why can't you have this solidarity?
So there are things that the Jewish people can say and things that the non-Jewish person cannot say. This is one of them, but I will be more diplomatic. Look, within the Jewish community, they know themselves that they are their own biggest enemies. And that is a problem since the Holocaust. This is why you had Jews who became couples and participated in it, because
But there were some collaborators, yeah.
yes. So, you know, and I think it would be an unrealistic expectation of the Jewish communities to act so homogeneously and as a monolithic entity, because such as we Hungarians are very diverse with our way of living a Hungarian life or being proud as a it's unrealistic to expect Jews to agree on everything. And you know, there is jokes that
But Hungary does not have an enemy like Hamas, right?
we do have other types of enemy. You are right. You're correct on that.
Mhm.
Again, two Jews, three different opinions. I do think that the majority of the Jewish communities do align on the fact that Hamas is their enemy. How they would go about it and fight it, and regarding the hostages and things, there are different opinions. But this is also why Israel and Jews at large are the people who they are. Because by the rabbis encourage arguments, they encourage disagreement among
Yeah.
themselves, you know. So this is how you grow, and I think this is another element that we should take from them, the power of disagreeing and how each one of us are growing through that disagreement. So I believe that the Jewish community, such as any other communities, have their rights. And just to give parallelism, within the Black community, there is major disagreements about the BLM itself.
Yeah.
So many actually successful Black people are against BLM, and that they're saying the whole is nonsense, and that basically it's just a sustained racism through BLM. And then you have the others who feel that BLM is their savior. So, you know, the same goes here.
Okay, okay. Understood. So recently, in one of your interviews, you made an admission that growing up, you had this stereotypical view of Jewish people, and some of this you admitted that some of the stereotypes were rooted in ignorant anti-Semitism. It was not a vicious anti-Semitism. How did you muster this courage to admit that?
That wasn't easy. I mean, nobody wants to hear about themselves that, hey, you were silly or you made a mistake or what was wrong with. So I think it's a lot of self-awareness and courage. And I think if more people would do that, we would be better as a society. Yeah, that didn't happen overnight. I needed to write a lot, first journal and then publicly write about, you know, my upbringing and how I was a product of my own environment. So in as much as I take responsibility for it, you also cannot blame a child who was told certain things and who grew up in the times when these things were part of society and when society itself was just coming out of communism. So it's like so much more nuanced than we think. And that is why I distinguish mainly between the different level of anti-Semitism, one that comes from ignorance, and the other, which is what we see now more or less on social media, is this ideologically driven hatred. Major difference, because one is actually hatred, the other one is just, let's be honest, stupidity and a lack of intelligence and lack of knowledge. So yeah.
Okay. So would you give this benefit of doubt that you gave yourselves to Palestinian kids?
100%. I very much speak against cancel culture also because of that. Cancel culture is the biggest enemy of our human development, if you think about it. It's because there are so many things I said at age 14, 25, or even 35, I'm 39 now, that I'm not proud of anymore. I changed, and thank God I changed. Imagine if I hadn't. And yet people would go back to something I said as age 14, dig that up, and because of that, cancel me today as age 39. That's just not the way forward. What I do as a test is that some first time you can say something silly. Then we can educate you, show you a different perspective. But if you are notoriously returning to the same narrative, meaning, let's again use plain language, you are repeating your anti-Semitic statements without learning, without, you know, thinking about it twice, then you're out. Then you can be,
That's the line to be
yeah,
drawn.
exactly. But someone says something we don't like and immediately cancel them. That is the death of human development and progress.
Okay. Would you extend this benefit of doubt to Claudin Gay,
To whom?
who to Claudin Gay, the Harvard University ex-Harvard University president, who during the testification
Yes, I am.
refused to condemn the genocide of refused to condemn the protesters demanding for the genocide of Jewish people. A lot of people said that she should have been protected by freedom of speech.
So
Claude.
the reason, so I'm thinking hardly because I am really taking pride on not being a hypocrite. The reason she doesn't get a pass because she doubled down on her statement. The first time she said something, okay, but then she doubled down. She never corrected herself. She never apologized. She never, and that sentence towards any other minority group would have been a racist statement
Yeah.
that everyone calls out. And instead, she just put on herself the badge of honor of repeating and repeating. So yeah, she is definitely crossed the line.
Okay. Okay. So if you look at history, some the anti-Semitism in Germany originated from some of the popular academic institutions.
Mm.
So today, American university campuses have become a hotbed of anti-Semitism. You just have to, enroll in one of these elite universities, and you will come out as a rabid anti-Semite. Semite. How do you fix this rottenness in these American universities?
It's hard in America because of the First Amendment. It's like you can almost not do anything, but obviously the clear answer is follow the money. Who finances them? The moment there is a questionable organization / country that is financing college campuses, and hence they have a say in the curriculum, that is a line you could draw and you could cut that, especially when those countries are known to led again by terrorist organizations. It is not a secret how much money Qatar has been given to the American higher education. And we all know that money talks, bullshit walks, meaning they put the money in it, so they have the power to adjust the curriculum. And then these professors, they have the choice again to go with this, or like Shai Davidai say, okay, hello, come on, stop, because this is just nonsense. But look at how much Shai is getting the heat for the basic notion that he stands up for, yet the other one is cheered. Why? Because currently in our environment, that is the PC, that is the normal, that is the socially accepted, what the other professors are going for. It doesn't make them the righteous one, but today that is the trend.
Okay. So you again in one of your recent interviews, you said that Israel need not have to fight this PR war. It has it's on the right side of history. But okay, let us play this. Okay, let me pretend a scenario. Let me wear the hat of this, uh, a 29-year-old guy. So I am a okay. I leave for my work at 9 a.m. and I come back to my home at 6 p.m. and I have a wife. I have kids. I rarely scroll through my social media feed and I watch this horrific. I see this horrific images that are emanating from Gaza, and I immediately think that Israel should stop this war. How will you convince me that Israel is doing the right thing and Israel is acting only in self-defense?
I won't be able to convince you. That, let's be honest, like I know people don't want to hear this, and that makes me unpopular because I think many of the influencers are selling a utopistic dream that because of what they are doing, you can change this. No, most of us are in an echo chamber. And only the people who are really brave enough to step into the enemy's territory offline, not online, but in real life, they can change something. Currently, online, a person who is scrolling through these materials after a long day when they are emotionally like already, out of the day, you
Okay.
won't be able to change that with anything. And that's a psychological fact. If I meet that person in a coffee shop next day, I can talk with him. But on social media, not. And this is why the energy should be put more onto the offline world I suppose, even though I understand how it works. So I'm still doing my online activism, don't get me wrong, but I'm also not selling this utopian dream that everything we are doing there is going to change something and move the needle, because it's very rare. The only people we can maybe encourage to think a little differently are people who are more neutral and people who still have this moral right and wrong and common sense of which one is which. But people who already have any kind of emotional connection against Israel, and I'm not even going to say connection pro-Palestinian, but connection against Israel, on social media, simply, you won't be able to change a dime.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, fine. And you know something, I don't know if you know this, you and Theodore Herzl have one thing in common.
What? Budapest.
The thing is, he also did not believe in, I mean, he also believed that Zionism should be rooted in civil liberty and human rights and not, it should not have a religious argument.
Right.
And a lot of people, I mean, a lot of Jewish people are making this biblical argument how the land belongs to them. And you also said that it does not resonate. I mean, these arguments won't resonate with today's generation. But why are people in Israel making this biblical argument instead of making a valid civil rights argument, just like Martin Luther King did?
Look, again, Jewish people will stand up for their own country and for their own community very differently than I can stand up for them.
Okay.
But one thing we need to acknowledge is that today's generation don't even know what happened 10 years ago in their own country, let alone, thousands of miles away. So telling them that 3,000 years ago, God promised the land, 3,000 years ago, they don't even compute what that actually means. They also have this vehement rejection towards the Bible, no matter Christian or Jewish, no matter that. They are just pushing religion away. So the moment they hear something from a religious aspect, they have this automatic trigger point. And so there are two sides to this. One, translate it to common language today, and that is a civil rights movement, that is a human rights act. So there is all that they can connect to in a way. 3,000 years ago is not something they can even think about.
But I literally laugh when people make these statements like free Palestine, from river to the sea, Palestine will be free, because Palestinians were given 5 chances to have their own state. They rejected it. When you mean free Palestine, what do you mean? I don't understand this. You are given an option to have your own state. You
Yeah, but
rejected
again,
it.
as we mentioned before, people are lazy. They don't want to know that. And I think they purposefully choose not to do that because then their worldview would be shattered,
Okay.
And they need to acknowledge that, hey, I might have made a mistake, and that's hard, and you need courage to do that.
Okay.
So they just blame Israel for everything. And, going back to the educational system, what we see this very simplified view on life, the colonized, the colonizer, the oppressed, the oppressor, the white, and the people of color. And the world is way more nuanced than that. And so it's all interlinked, like a strong matrix that people should see. And don't forget one thing, acknowledging your own mistake is the most courageous step one can take. And very
Okay.
few people are okay to do that.
And how do you make sure that your passionate advocacy for Israel does not obstruct you from seeing things that might be critical of Israel?
Simply because I try to be grounded and I try to be objective. So this is why when someone called me I remember when I started speaking about Israel and someone called me a Hasbara propaganda machine. I didn't even know what Hasbara was. I wasn't
What
there.
does it mean?
Hasbara is actually a Hebrew word to explain, but Hasbara is the pro-Palestine, pro-Israel influencers, basically. So people who stand up as a courier to protect Israel. And I had no knowledge about this term back then. And again, it goes back to self-awareness. Do I always like what I'm reading that challenges me? Oh no, I get triggered. I just want to put it away. I was like, I don't want to believe this. But in order for me to stay authentic and credible, at least towards the audience I'm speaking to, I need to do that work. And this is why you will see me calling out Hungary when we are doing something, that is not really kosher. And you're gonna see me also call out Jewish communities, which I have done. But then it's very sad because then I get attacked as a non-Jew who is attacking the Jewish communities, and they don't want to see why is it being done, you know? So I'm really big on emphasizing that respect needs to go both way. And if you want to better the relationship between our communities, that really needs to stand its ground. And when the answer is that, oh, but Virag, all the suffering that the Jews went through because of you guys, Christians and Hungarians, what do you want me to do with that? I have nothing to do with the Christian Crusades, you know, so much back in history. And I also have nothing to do with the Shoah. So if you look at me and because of that, you still think you can behave badly towards me or Christians or Hungarians, then we lost the mutual respect and we are just going to repeat history. But it's hard because we all are triggered. We all have our traumas, you know, so we need to be compassionate, but also stay our grounds that, okay, nobody is above or below anyone here. We are equal partners in this, and it's only together, united, that we can achieve something.
Okay, okay. And you recently interviewed a Nova Music survivor. So, what did you learn from speaking to a survivor from Nova Music Festival that you would not have been able to gain by simply relying on traditional news media sources? What is the media actually failing to cover?
Hmm. None of the survivors I have had the chance to talk to wanted revenge. And I think that is the most powerful thing I have ever heard, because none of them said, okay, let's go and now reverse this. They all said, it's horrible what happened. I'm a survivor, and we need to have the resilience and hope and faith to rebuild peace. Whether their trust in their neighbors had been, you know, shaken up, they all agreed yes, but none of them said that the way forward is absolutely cut the relationship with them. And I think this is not emphasized enough because, again, show me other people who would have this kind of, I don't,
Compassion.
yes, and graciousness the way they carry themselves after such terrorist attacks.
Okay, okay. Oh, was it a life-changing experience for you when you spoke to a Holocaust survivor? Because Holocaust is the most tragic thing to have ever occurred in the history of humanity. So when you speak to a person who had survived the Holocaust, did it change your perceptions about life and way you look at life?
You know, they always give me an enormous level of faith in humanity and hope. And I think I'm always learning from them. And in a way, I envy them how they are able to look at life today, even with so much hope and positivity. And I'm not grouping all Holocaust survivors. Some of them were able to, you know, heal in a way and look at life this way. And some of them still hold a grudge,
Yeah, understandable.
which is understandable and also very painful,
Mm,
because one of the articles that I wrote a couple of years ago is when a Holocaust survivor told me that
I
you're
read that.
Hungarian, you are all anti-Semites, and you're always going to stay that way. And you have this moral dilemma how to respond this. I'm not responsible for what happened to him, but I can understand his pain. So double-edged sword. For me, Holocaust survivors always just humble me and make me feel more kind of like strong in my point of view that nothing is constant and everything is changing, and it's really up to me and my decisions how I want to look at life. And I think that is something everyone can learn and should learn.
Okay, okay. And I watched one of your videos where you interviewed a Jewish actress, and I forgot the name of the actress, sorry. And she said that she always carries this sense of anxiety within herself. It's a part of Jewish cultural DNA. Is it not the objective of the creation of Israel to remove that anxiety? If that anxiety still persists, then what is the purpose of the creation of Israel?
That they know that at least they can protect themselves.
Wow, that's a
But
good
look
answer.
at the anxiety cannot go away as long as every day one of your neighbors is questioning the legitimate existence of your country and your people. And you know, today you have rockets from the north, then you have from the south, and then to the right and left. Anxiety is always there. But I think if you see the charts, Israeli people are always ranking among the highest in terms of happiness.
Yeah,
And
that's amazing.
that should be shocking in a way for everyone, because look at America. We have everything here. We are free. We have the wealth. We have everything at our fingerprints and Amazon Prime. And Israelis don't even have Amazon Prime and they are the happiest. So, it shows a lot about how they approach life and how they choose to approach life. So anxiety might be there, but because of that, they also look and treat life differently.
Okay, okay. And also, I don't know if it is possible in today's climate, but you said that this entire argument that pro-Palestine versus I mean pro-Israel versus pro-Palestine is based on a false premise. I mean, what do you mean by that?
Say again, I didn't catch
No,
the
no, no,
question.
no, no. You said that this entire debate that is framed within this I mean that is situated in a framework of pro-Palestine versus pro-Israel. You said that basis of the debate is based is it can be traced back to a false premise. You said it's a false assumption. Why did you say that?
Oh, I think what you are asking is that, for example, I don't really let myself be categorized as a pro-Israel voice, because that automatically entails that I would be anti-Palestinian, and that's not the case.
It's not
I
a football match.
Yeah, so I am definitely for peace. What I am doing is definitely strongly standing up for the Jewish human and civil rights and
Okay.
Israel's legitimate existence. I think the moment we make groups like pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian, we feel that we are at a soccer game and we need to cheer for teams. But the problem is that it's not like someone is getting a medal when they win, but people actually die on both sides the moment
But
we do
but
this.
it's happening. Some of the soccer fans in stadium are openly, expressing their support for Palestine. Like,
That is that is in and of itself nonsense and should be banned. Like, sports, arts, any sort of non-political field in life should unite us. And the moment you let this politics go into the sports field and the fields of arts, you are neglecting the essence of that field, So it's heartbreaking.
okay, okay. There are only few Holocaust survivors left in this world, and some of them are saying what's happening in the Western countries is the exact same thing that happened in Nazi Germany. I mean, I can understand that, but when you compare what's happening today to Holocaust, is it not like minimizing the pain that people suffered during Holocaust? Is it a valid comparison?
Look, I will never override the opinion of any Holocaust survivor because they know something that I don't, thankfully.
Okay,
I do hope that they are wrong. I do hope that we are better as society and we're never gonna let that repeat. But what is a wrong assumption and definitely rewriting history is when people compare the Palestinian death to Holocaust and that Israel is committing a second Holocaust. That in and of itself is just
ridiculous.
making me understand that people have no clue what the Holocaust actually was about. And again, you are just using these exaggerated terms to make a point because you are actually lacking argument.
The same people are denying Holocaust, and at
Yes,
the same time, they are accusing Israel of Holocaust.
isn't that sweet?
It's a
Yeah,
paradox, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's so. And before October 7th, Israel was beset with internal divisions. From afar, it looked like Israel at any moment would collapse. It looked like that. It
Yeah.
looked like it's going to be it was going to be the undoing of the Jewish state. And then October 7th happened. The divisions were relegated to the background, and the Palestinians, the Israelis found a new sense of solidarity. In a way, in a dark way, did October 7th save Israel from Israelis?
Probably. Look, I can disagree with you. I also looked at Israel with great concern back then. And, every country has their political turmoil, but I do believe that that gave a pass to October 7th. When you seem weak from the outside, you are treated as weak, and this is what happened. We need to wait for the final investigations as to what really went down on October 7th. I'm sure Israel will look into that, like how could they breach in, and so many questions even now, a year after. But yeah, it's never a good look on a country, especially when you are kind of hated by so many, and then they see you fighting among each other. Obviously, yes, but I think it's a beautiful spin on it, what you just said, that maybe that saved Israel from itself.
It looked like that, right? Yeah, that's why I said. So, and also in this, again in today's highly charged political climate, people are losing their friendships for voicing their support for you know voicing their support for Israel, and some men are even claiming that they are not getting a date just for voicing the support for Israel. So, have you faced any personal? I mean, have you lost? Has it cost you any personal relationship because of your advocacy for Israel? If you don't mind, how did you handle those personal fallouts?
Yes, yes. Heavy heart. It's like a breakup, when friends that you have trusted just step over you because of your stand. And people, now I'm referring to our non-Jewish people who were in my life, they knew what I stand for, and the moment the war broke out, they went with a wave of people who were marching on the street against Israel the day after October 7th. And obviously I can't be with friends with people who can't even give one day of acknowledgement of what Israel has faced. And my while my friends were all affected in a way by October 7th, then these American non-Jewish friends just march on the street against that. So it was really hard. It's a heartbreak each time it happens. And I think it's harder and harder for me to trust and open towards new friendships. But again, unless I do the work and open and get brave, I can just be alone for the rest of my life in that sense. So I'm not allowing that. But yes, and I think it's a big problem that we couldn't even discuss. So they didn't even allow any type of and any level of different opinion of theirs. Like I was the one trying to understand where they are coming from, but they were not interested in this perspective. And so again, going back, to how we started the interview, that's just putting up the walls. This is what I believe in. Nobody can question that, and nobody should tell me otherwise. I think it's really horrible. And I know families who got torn apart because of this, divorces happened because of this. Mother came up to me who said that they are Jewish as a family, and the three daughters, they all go to the same Ivy League college, and they didn't come home for Thanksgiving because they are marching against Israel while their relative was among the hostages. And so I'm standing there, and all I can give is a shoulder for that mother to cry on, because how do you deal with that, So yeah, it's really challenging times.
So, is time running out for you?
Yes, yes,
Okay, yeah, I'll end there. So, okay,
actually.
thank you so much, and thank you so much for such an illuminating conversation. Thank you so
Thank
much.